welcome to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Sarah. Very happy to be with you on yet another Tuesday, this first Tuesday of November, to bring you yet another author interview. As we get started, I do want to remind you, as I always do, to please like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you're either listening to or watching this episode on. Really does help the algorithm. It helps get this podcast out to more listeners, such as yourselves, listeners, watchers, readers. If you want to help in a monetary fashion, you may do so by going to gsmcpodcast.net. There you can leave a donation if you are of a mind to. That helps not only this podcast, but the network as a whole, and it is greatly appreciated. As I keep saying, no matter what form the support you give takes, it is very, very much appreciated. Maybe you just tune in each week. Maybe you're new here and you've just discovered the podcast. Maybe you're a longtime listener. Maybe you've left comments. Maybe you've followed on social media. There's so many ways that you can support this podcast, and they are all greatly appreciated. But as I said, if you're of a mind to leave a tip in support of this podcast, you can do so by going to gsmcpodcast.net. I thank you in advance. How is your first week of November going? How was your Halloween, if you did anything? Halloween was on a Friday, so potentially more activities to do. Halloween isn't that big of a deal here. We weren't in town this year. Sometimes when we are down in the village, we see the classes. So some of the schools will take classes trick-or-treating. Maybe not even trick-or-treating. They just kind of They wear their costumes. They must go trick-or-treating. I don't know for sure. To businesses, I would assume. But you can see little clumps of them going around town, and that's always fun. I enjoy that. But we weren't down there this year. We were home working. And then we just, there are some towns do things in the evening, maybe a small festival or a party of some sort. We stayed home this year and watched movies. Hubby wasn't feeling great, so it was good to just stay home, relax, snuggle with puppies, and enjoy spending time together. So we watched movies, of course, whimsical for me, not horror. Thankfully, he's the same way about Halloween. He's not a huge, horror person either. So we watched some silly Halloween movies, some cheesy Halloween movies. I got in The Great Pumpkin, which I love. I don't even need to watch it really anymore. I watch it every year, but I might be crocheting or doing something else and it's just on and I'm quoting it. It's just like a big warm fuzzy blanket that I wrap around myself. It's comforting and nostalgic. And me quoting almost every line is probably why the hubby does not watch it with me. Usually. He's usually doing something else, and that's okay. But I hope you had a good Halloween and then a good weekend, and now your week is off to a great start. But we are here to talk about a book. In this particular case, we are talking about At Least I'm Trying by Tara Hodgson. This is young adult. Let me go ahead and give you the description of the book. When the volleyball hits the floor mere inches from Reese's hands, her dreams of playing college ball shatter. After consecutive failures on the court, in the classroom and in her relationships, she's done playing the part of perfect daughter, perfect student, and perfect athlete. It's time for a new life. Enter Cassie Brentwood. Bold, reckless, free. Cassie is everything Reese isn't, yet longs to be. They quickly become friends, and Cassie introduces her to Liam, a mysterious guy from Snapchat. Blinded by his love bombing and the desperation to shed her perfect image, Reese plunges headfirst into their world. It feels instantly thrilling, until it's not. Girls are disappearing from nearby towns. However, no one in their quiet small town seems concerned. But when Liam's behavior grows darker, Reese's new life begins to unravel. She ignores the warnings, the red flags, the little voice screaming to her that something's not right. Until she's far from home, trapped in a nightmare she can't escape. With no one left to trust, Reese has to fight to reclaim the life she was so eager to leave behind. She wanted freedom. Now she just wants to go home. At least she has to try. Told with searing honesty and lyrical depth, At Least I'm Trying is a poignant novel about mental health, girlhood, and what happens when the version of yourself you've worked so hard to become starts to fall apart. So that is the description of At Least I'm Trying. You hear there's a lot of identity issues in this book. The main character, Reese, is in her last year of high school. She has been well, she has tried to be the perfect daughter, the perfect student, the perfect athlete. She has tried so hard to be perfect. Even in her own family, though, her older sister is really considered the perfect one. She struggles to find her place, her own self worth, what she wants to do. And then very early in the book, things come crashing down. She has a college scout watching her play. She does not do well, and things just fall apart quickly. And Reese goes to some pretty dark places, and her story goes to some pretty dark places. So this is, there's a lot of heavy themes in this book, but themes that are so important to talk about, like mental health and identity, and what happens to Reese after she cuts off her current relationships and makes new friends with some people who are not good for her, and what that leads to. I'm going to let Tara talk more about that, but there are some difficult subjects in this book, and they are opportunities to talk to the young adults in your life if you have them, because young adults face a lot of very heavy topics, experiences, situations in their life. And in this case, it's exacerbated by Snapchat, which is the version of social media in this book. And social media plays a huge role in a lot of mental health and identity issues currently happening amongst young people. So, very important themes in this book. I'm going to let Tara talk more about that. Again, the book is called At Least I'm Trying. The author is Tara Hodgson, excuse me. Let's go to that interview with Tara. Hi, Tara. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm happy to have you here. Looking forward to talking about the book. Before we get to the book, though, if you wouldn't mind just taking a few moments to introduce yourself, that would be great.
My name is Tara Hodgson, and I am the author of two YA contemporary novels. And I'm also a junior high teacher, and I'm in year 18. So my life is literally surrounded by teenagers all day, every day. And yeah, I live in Alberta, Canada. So we're getting prepared for winter over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Junior high is they can be so fun and so
Yeah.
challenging sometimes, but like I just remember being that age and having everything feel slightly crazy.
Yeah, it is a little crazy. And I think us teachers who choose them we've got to be a little crazy too, because it's a wild world out there.
But so good that there are people who choose that and are
Yes,
good at it and enjoy it. Well, hopefully you enjoy it.
I do. I subbed in all different grades, and I've taught grade 5, grade 6, and I don't mind high school, but I don't know what it is about junior high. I do really like them.
That's wonderful. All right. So the book is called At Least I'm Trying. Can you give an overview of the story?
Yeah, so I always like to start. It is the premise of Snapchat gone wrong. My stories tend to revolve around technology, especially the social media piece,
Mm.
because as like my experiences with teenagers, that is such a huge part of their life and their existence is what's happening on their phones. So at least I'm trying was inspired by a conversation I overheard about a function on Snapchat called Snap Maps,
Hmm.
which is essentially where kids share their real-time location with their followers all the time,
Yeah.
every day, no
Yeah.
matter who those followers are. So I was very curious about this, and I started to do some research into, how, well, I kind of went down a dark path and what is the main avenue of kids being targeted by predators today? Because I know when I was a kid, you're afraid to go, walk down the street by yourself or go to the
Hmm.
city by yourself or the
Hmm.
mall or whatever.
Yeah.
And that doesn't seem to be the typical avenue anymore because kids are so much easier to locate where they are all the time, which is on their phones.
Yeah.
So I did some research and kind of went down this wormhole of how these terrible things are happening through apps such as Snapchat, through different games. There's a whole bunch of different avenues, and how it's becoming more and more prevalent for kids to be targeted through these. So I created this character, Reese, who is inspired actually by a lot of students that I've seen, that, the perfectionist student who has the pressure of everything on their shoulders. Their parents want them to achieve those top marks, be the top athlete. They need the scholarship, be the valedictorian, and just like all of these pressures that they carry. And she crumbles underneath that pressure and starts to experience failure for the first time in her life. And instead of continuing down that road of perfection, she gives up entirely and seeks a completely darker new path, new friends, a new relationship. And she ends up connecting with this man through Snapchat, and that takes her down a really dark journey.
Yeah. It must be fascinating and somewhat terrifying in the time that you've been teaching to see just how much technology has changed in that small space of time.
It really is. I mean, like 18 years is a long time, but really in the big span of things, it's not.
Yeah.
So in those 18 years, like the changes that I've seen in the technology landscape and how that's affected kids, like when I think back to my first few years when there was no technology, like kids did not have their own phones. There was technology, but kids in their back pockets, and it wasn't readily available at their fingertips. We would go to the computer lab to do research and log into the big computers. And now it's just right there. Everything they could ever want or wish to look at is at their fingertips. So it's definitely rippled, into the classroom. And I've seen a lot of changes in kids due to that.
Yeah. Really is amazing when you think about everything that our phones can do now. Tiny little computers in our pockets, they make phone calls sometimes. You can take pictures. I mean, you can search the internet, and there's so much information, good and bad, on the internet. It really is amazing what technology has done. But it also has caused things that need to be figured out. It's made changes. Things have had to adapt. Things and people have had to adapt because of how fast technology has moved. And I can only imagine that in the classroom that makes a huge difference. And teachers are probably really working on ways to adjust to those changes. At any rate, we are going to take a break. We're still going to be talking about this subject when we come back, as we transition into how fast technology has changed, especially even in my lifetime and Tara's lifetime. So keep that in mind. You're tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I will be right back.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and my conversation with author Tara Hodgson. As we get back into this second segment, this is your second and final reminder that if you'd like to help the podcast in a monetary way, you can go to gsmcpodcast.net. You do see that in the video next to me, but you also will see it scrolling along the bottom of your screen throughout the episode in case you would like a reminder. So as I keep saying, if you want to help the podcast and the network as a whole, you may do so by going to gsmcpodcast.net. And I thank you, as always, for that support. Before the break, Tara was talking about technology and the role phones play and how that has affected students and teachers and situations in classrooms and the information that, well, everyone has available to them through their phones, and how that all ties in with technology and social media. Just kind of recapping as much as possible so that the next comment makes sense to you as we return to the conversation with Tara. I mean, it just compared to my childhood, which I realized was, as my youngest niece likes to point out, I was born in the 1900s.
Yes, me too. Me too.
But I just look and think how different my high school years were compared to my niece's high school years in one generation.
Definitely. And I always hear people, who are born in the 1900s, of our generation, saying like, I'm so glad social media wasn't around when I was a kid. But then they say this right before handing over social media to,
Right.
their most beloved asset, their children, their most
Yeah.
beloved, and letting them go through that challenge and experience, even though they are acknowledging that they don't think that they would have navigated that path.
Right. Yeah.
well.
Yeah. It's interesting. And
Yes.
I mean, I do agree with that. I am grateful that it wasn't, I mean,
100%.
it would have been helpful to have GPS and not have to drive with a paper map,
Totally.
but
Yeah.
or when we started printing out the directions and I would try to read and drive.
Oh yeah. My dad would draw me little maps to follow.
Yeah.
100%.
There are good
some-
things, but so talk a little bit more about Reese as the main character. You've talked a little bit about her, but what do you think will resonate most with readers?
Yeah, I guess I wanted Reese to be very relatable, because I think we've all been in a situation where we failed and then making the choice, like, now where do I go? What do I do? And I think there is a lot of pressure put on certain kids, like those academic kids. And I wanted to show them that even if you do fail, and even if you do find yourself in a challenging situation, there's hope at the end. So Reese goes through, obviously, this is an extreme example
Yeah.
of potential implications of social media.
Yeah.
But she goes through this terrible situation and she does come out the other side and it's okay.
Mhm.
And in my first book, Chasing Through Time, for my protagonist as well, I wanted to show, when you are a teenager, everything feels all encompassing in that moment. You can't see beyond it. It's so hard for them. Like, it is their world entirely. So I always want to show those challenges and that feeling, but then it does get better.
Yeah.
It does. And it's not perfect, but it gets better. So Reese, she goes through the ringer, but things get better.
Yeah. Even as an adult reading the story, I could remember back to those feelings of I was a bit of a perfectionist as a kid, not because of parental pressure, but more my own pressure. But, I could remember those feelings and how it did feel all encompassing.
Yeah.
But reading as an adult, I just wanted to reach through the pages and slap both of her parents.
I know. And the thing is, as a teacher, I have seen I've seen all kinds of parents. And I have seen parents who that is their only goal and they don't see how it's negatively affecting their kids.
Yeah.
And I think this happens with sports. You see those parents in the crowd who are just losing their minds when their kid makes a mistake on the court or on the ice or whatever it is, and not recognizing in the moment, like, how deeply that is harming those kids. And now when they do mess up, which kids are going to, they're supposed to, they don't know how to navigate that and they don't feel like they have someone to go to. So Reese's parents, I definitely put them to, like, the extreme side of things, but those parents exist. And just, I think my books, I hope, start conversations between adults and kids of, maybe we need to talk about, how these things are going down. And I didn't see this and I didn't understand this. And yeah, my goal is definitely to spark conversations.
Right. Yeah. In terms of characters, when you sit down to write a new story, do you have a really clear picture of the characters in your mind when you start writing, or do you like them to evolve more naturally as you write, or some combination thereof?
Yeah, Reese, I had like a very good picture of her at the beginning, because I kind of drew on my own experiences as a teacher, and I took a whole bunch of pieces and kind of made her this new person with all of those little bits of other people. So I knew exactly what she was going to be like, but she evolves, like she goes through so much, and she definitely, a lot of things happen that I didn't plan for or didn't expect. I'm definitely not a full planner. I have like an idea, and then things just happen sometimes when I'm writing. I'm like, oh, I did not know that was going to happen today, but I kind of like it. So I definitely let her, just being in her head, I let that kind of guide how she ended up.
Yeah. As a writer, as a mom, as a teacher, how do you navigate writing some of the more difficult aspects of this age group? Sex, drinking, all the choices that teenagers have to face.
I guess I don't want to be afraid to show the truth. And I know it can be hard, but I'm around kids and I know what's happening. And so I know a few people, like, I'm not explicit. That's number one for me, is I don't ever want to be explicit. I don't think that that's necessary. So even when, I am addressing themes such as sex, which is a very, that is a reality. I never go explicit in any way. Because I'm not comfortable with that. And I don't think teens reading it need to, be reading that. But I also don't want to just shy away and pretend these things aren't happening. So kids are drinking, kids are doing drugs, kids are having sex, kids are being exposed to really terrible things over their phones. And kids tell me about it a lot of the time. So I hear some of these things, and I just want to shy away from those potentially triggering subjects, because that's not real. And my whole point of writing is to be as real as possible and to confront maybe those difficult truths in order to spark some conversations that need to happen. Because as a parent, like my kids aren't teenagers yet, but these poor kids, I know too much. So but I think it's important not to bury our heads in the sand. Because we have to have these open dialogues open with our kids so that they come to us when they are exposed to these situations, which is a very real possibility. So being that person is really important, and, not judging them when these situations come up. I think that's really important for me. And when I grew up, my parents were very much read whatever you want. And I was always drawn to like very difficult subject matter. Like Go Ask Alice. I don't know if you know what that book is.
I haven't read it, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
I reread that book so many times, and I was like 13, 14 years old, and it stuck with me. And I think I learned as a teenager some very valuable lessons by being exposed to that difficult content through that book.
Yeah.
Because when I'm talking about these difficult things, I'm not endorsing it. I'm showing it in order to, teach some lessons. Like, if you do go down this path, if you do choose to have sex, for example, these are some potential repercussions of that. If you do choose to drink, these are some potential repercussions of that. If you do choose to chat with strangers online and create connections with them, these are some potential implications of that. Fiction to me is not just fake. Like, you hear fiction is fake, nonfiction is real. To me, fiction is learning through imagination, and fiction is learning through facts. So my fiction is meant to be a teaching tool, a conversation tool, a learning tool.
Yeah. I think books can be such a good conversation starter or teaching tool, especially when they do make us uncomfortable or we think there are some dark themes in them. I know for myself, if something is making me feel, why is that? I'm not always good at this. I'm just saying that I do sometimes attempt to think, okay, why does this make me feel uncomfortable? Why do I feel like this is such a hard topic? And then, it can be a teaching tool and a conversation starter. And I am grateful for authors who are able to write about challenging subjects and difficult subjects in ways that might make for good teaching tools and conversation starters. We are going to go ahead and take our second break of this episode. When we come back, Tara will be talking about some of the research she did for the book. You're tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I will be right back.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and my conversation with author Tara Hodgson. Before the break, Tara was talking about some of the more difficult topics that appear in this book and her other young adult novel, and why she doesn't shy away from writing those topics. We're going to go ahead and return now to the conversation with Tara. What kinds of research did you do for the book?
I don't want to spoil this in any way, but I went to, I did some research on actual firsthand accounts of people who were sex trafficked.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of my starting point. And like, how did it happen? Because I think the public's perception is this, it's vulnerable populations who are targeted,
Right.
People who are houseless, people who have substance abuse issues or come from families from poverty, and kind of all of these ideas we have in our head of people who that happens to.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was doing that research, it was very different. That it told a very different story. So there was a lot of firsthand accounts from young, not just girls, all sorts of young people from very well-off households,
Mm-hmm.
even your middle-class households, but they were missing something in some way, and whoever that they connected with filled that void.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people through technology were being targeted.
Yeah.
And how this kind of happened little by little by little. They call it a Romeo. So this person who's meant to lure in the victim, and then they form a relationship, and he or she buys them gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And says all of the right things and makes them feel so adored and loved, even though there's these red flags kind of scattered all around.
Yeah.
And then how that escalates to something they never would have imagined.
Yeah.
So that was the bulk of my research, was reading firsthand accounts of that.
Mm-hmm. I'd imagine that was very difficult.
Yes, it was very difficult.
Mm-hmm. Given the themes of the book, and we haven't even touched on there's themes of mental health as well, because Reese is struggling with a lot of things, but what do you hope readers might take away from the book?
Yeah, I guess, like I said before, mental health, well, first of all, as a teacher in the last 18 years, mental health concerns have multiplied beyond what I ever would have imagined. Obviously, being a teenager has, difficulties that transcend timelines, self-esteem issues, friendship issues, relationship issues, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But with the increased use of technology and that inability to ever disconnect, and that constant comparison that's even more elevated, because you're always comparing yourself to people as a teenager, because you're not sure of who you are and where you fit. That mental health piece for me is so important to highlight and be real about again. So Reese really struggles with that. And then she's still struggling at the end. But like I said before, I wanted to show that even though things feel so dark that you feel like you might never actually get out of it, you can get out the other side. And talking about those issues is so, so critical.
Yeah.
So once we do finally see Reese and her family kind of, coming full circle, that makes such a difference for her too. Having people to lean on is really important. So yeah, Reese, I wanted to kind of show that full circle journey from rock bottom to, again, not everything's perfect and tied with a bow,
Right.
which
Right.
is definitely never my goal at the end of a book, because I don't feel like that's authentic.
Mm-hmm.
But it's better.
Yeah.
There's signs that it's going to continue to improve as well.
Right. It
Yeah.
reminds me of, maybe this was your experience as a child too, but all of these sort of like after school specials where things tended to
Oh,
get
yeah.
tied up with a bow, and sometimes I think back and I think nothing ever works out. Like there's no music and there's not like this perfect moment where,
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely, I feel like that's just too cheesy. Like that's not how life works.
yeah,
It's too messy. Life is too messy and complicated, and it doesn't always happen that way, even
yeah,
though we will wish it would.
yeah, wouldn't that be
Yeah.
nice? Um, what draws you to writing young adult?
I think just because of my day job, I
Yeah.
guess. They literally create the stories for me. Just
Mhm.
being in that classroom, I'm constantly inspired by ideas, and I'm just very passionate about, I don't know, speaking on their behalf of what's happening. And again, just kind of showcasing what I see. I know what kind of inspired me to start writing in the first place was feeling very helpless about what was happening with, what I was noticing with all the social media stuff and the mental health and everything, especially after COVID. I just felt so helpless. I don't know what to do. And this story came to me, and it literally just flew out of me. I never thought I would write a book.
Mm.
And then I just had idea after idea after idea. And like, this is how I can speak that passion, and now I can get it out to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Are you working on something currently?
I am. I'm taking a little breather because it's been a lot, but I actually am almost done the first draft of an adult contemporary fiction,
Mm.
more like women's fiction, but still those similar themes. I wanted to show that technology piece that's not just affecting kids, but in my story, it's how it affects a marriage
Mm.
mostly. And it's
Mhm.
from the mom's perspective. So there is a teenage girl as well. And now, so we see the teenager struggling too and their disconnection of a relationship, but from the mom's perspective. So as a mom, how do you, maybe miss those warning signs? And how do you now reconcile, when things start to go sideways?
Mm,
And how
sure.
do you help your
Yeah.
kids? And how do you get through, you know, issues in your marriage as well?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any challenges switching from young adult to adult contemporary?
No, I did really enjoy this, but I'm also just like itching to go back to YA.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. I thought, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just go this way, but I'm like, oh no, I want to go back. So
Nice.
I did enjoy this because it's more like my view right now. Like I could get more into my experiences and add in, little tidbits from being a mom and challenges of being a mom, which was kind of fun to play around with.
Yeah. No.
Mhm.
But that's good to know too. Like, you wrote it, you enjoyed it, but
Yeah, I
you're
did.
you're you're being pulled back.
I am definitely being pulled back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From your experience, not thinking you would necessarily write a book and then
Yeah.
or maybe a book just coming out of you,
Mhm.
what advice would you give to even your students who come to you and say they think they want to write?
I think the main piece of advice is to just do it. It's my biggest challenge, and I think most writers' biggest challenge is getting over the mental,
Mm,
block. Because in my head, I'm like, I'm not a writer. Why am I doing this? Who would want to read this? I don't have anything to say. Like just these words of doubt that kept getting in my way. And I didn't even really understand what imposter syndrome was
mm,
until I started writing. And I'm like, this is a terrible feeling. But I just kept writing. And I think you just every day, if you just write something, it's better you'll have more to work with if you have something on the page than just being like, I don't know what to do.
mhm.
So some days when I didn't feel like writing, I would just write, and then sometimes something would just happen, or it would be garbage, but at least it was something I could pull from and tweak and maybe work with or not, but just write. If you have a story, just write it, and then the rest kind of follows.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those voices of doubt are just evil. So try and ignore them.
Yeah, try. And
Yes.
they're very
Some
insidious.
days are better than others too. Like some days I'm like, oh, this is so good. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then other days I'm like, this is crap.
Right.
What am I doing?
Right. Yeah. I have to smile because this is crap. What am I doing is, no, maybe a daily refrain in my own brain for a lot of different reasons. So I definitely understand those feelings of what am I doing? Oh, why is this so terrible? Yeah, definitely get that. But that, of course, was only the last little bit of that conversation. So don't just focus on the this is crap, but everything else that Tara was saying as well. We are going to take our final break of this episode. When we come back, do Tara's students know she's a writer, and do they read her books? You're tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I'll be right back. Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and the conclusion of my interview with author Tara Hodgson. Before the break, Tara was giving the very good but sometimes hard to assimilate advice of ignore the voices. I know for myself, those voices are persistent and they are loud, but she was talking about that before the break. Let's go ahead and return to that conversation with Tara. Junior high students can be amazing and sometimes brutal. Do they know you are an author?
Yeah, they do. And they're the best. I actually, for both of my books, have used students to help be beta readers and help to build my characters. Because again, I'm elder millennial trying to put myself in a Gen Z world.
Right. Yeah.
So they have been absolutely so helpful with building my characters and just helping me with, dialogue and thoughts and, the slang and how do I incorporate that and not sound ridiculous. The sports stuff, I used a girl who plays high school volleyball, and she is my best and most harsh critic, but in the best way. Like, she will rip through my manuscript and cross things out, and no, they would never say this, they would never wear this, and this is not how it works. And so they have been amazing. And I have a group, they buy my books, they bring them to school and have me sign them, and they come to my events, and they're the best.
That's awesome. When you take time to read, just for you, favorite authors and genres?
Oh, I love reading. I'm not super particular. But I guess for YA, because I do try and read quite a bit of YA, just to give recommendations to my students. But Kathleen Glasgow is the queen of YA, in my opinion. She writes very much the way I want to be. She takes the most delicate subjects and writes them in such a beautiful and sensitive way. So she writes The Glass Girl, which was just amazing, about a teenager who's going through alcoholism and kind of working through that struggle. So she is phenomenal. John Green is another YA author who I just will read anything he has ever written over and over again. Adult wise, like I'll read all the things. I love fantasy. I've read all the Sarah J. Maas stuff, and um, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by
Mm.
V.E. Schwab is my
Mhm.
favorite book of all time. And yeah, I love books.
Me too.
Yeah,
There's so many.
yeah,
Um,
so many. I could just go and go and go.
yeah. What about your children? What do they like to read? And if so, what are they reading right now?
Yeah, my son is a voracious reader. So he's 10. He's reading the Percy Jackson series by himself, and we are almost done Harry Potter together, which I don't know, am I allowed to say that I'm reading Harry Potter? I have actually never read it in my life.
Oh, wow.
So I'm reading it for the first time with him, which has been pretty magical. And my daughter is just starting to get into the Magic Treehouse series. So she's 8. She's a little less voracious, but she has a hard time just sitting for long periods of time. So we just try and bite-sized chunks
Yeah.
reading for her. Yeah, we are a reading house. As a teacher, you need to read. It's not an option.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if she likes the Magic Treehouse, she has material for a
Oh
while.
yeah, it'll be good for a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
If people want to know more about you and your books, give your website and any social media that you're active on.
My website is just tarahodgson.ca. And most of my updates are on Instagram and Facebook. So I know it's been a total kind of mind twisting thing trying to market myself and my books that are not pro social media on social media.
Mhm.
So the irony is just too much.
Mhm.
But I'm getting there. So Instagram at Tara Hodgson author, I kind of update on what I'm reading, what I'm writing, some stuff about my current books and all of that.
Okay. Tara, is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to make sure you mention or highlight at this time?
I guess just I hope that people aren't intimidated by like kind of the dark matter, like the dark themes that I'm addressing, because I just hope people see that value in touching on those difficult matters. And I hope people see the value of talking about these things and, maybe not pushing aside, because there are some mature themes in there,
Mm-hmm.
but it is so important, I think, for kids and adults, like my books, even though they're YA or new adults have really found value in these books as well, more so than I ever could have imagined.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that people see the value in that. And,
Yeah.
Even though it's not easy, it's necessary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, Tara, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about the book and writing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Thank you again to Tara for joining me to talk about At Least I'm Trying and writing and everything else that we spoke about today. If you are a fan of young adult or you have someone in your life who is a fan of young adult, then you may want to check this out. You do know from the conversation that there are some difficult topics covered in this book, not just everyday things that all teenagers face: peer pressure, the choice to drink or not to drink, the choice to have sex or not, all things that happen in teenagers' lives. But Reese goes through some very difficult points in this book. And as Tara said, there's nothing graphic, but it's sometimes a little bit difficult to read. But lots of books have lots of difficult topics in them and characters who go through difficult things. And this book is no different from those. And as she said, that's not where it ends. There is a hopeful ending. There's nothing tied up in a neat bow, but Reese does get through things. And I'm not spoiling anything because Tara's already mentioned this. And so if that's a concern, it's not graphic at all. The things are covered, but in ways that are not graphic, are well done, and hopefully can lead to conversations. So if this is, like I said, if you're a fan of young adult books, or if you think that this is a good conversation starter, teaching moment opportunity, then definitely check this out. Also, you can go to Tara's website, look at if her other young adult book sounds interesting as well. But yeah, just know that there are some very well written and thought out themes in this book and a lot of good teaching moments. So if you are concerned about the darker moments, they are well balanced and not graphic, as I said. So thank you again to Tara for not only talking to me today, but also for taking the time to write about the harder subjects, and for, you can tell that she cares about her students. She cares about young people and wants to address issues that they may be facing in this medium for students or even adults to read and think about, maybe learn about, maybe talk about. So thank you to Tara for that. And thank you, as always, to you, my followers, my listeners, my readers, my watchers. I got to come up with a good overall word. If you've got a suggestion, please leave it in the comments, or and just let me know. I would love to hear your suggestion for what y'all should be called, because that would be very helpful rather than me listing a litany every time. Anyway, I hope that you will join me next time when I will be talking to author J.E. Weiner about her book, The Wretched and Undone. This is Southern Gothic. It has some supernatural elements to it. It is historical fiction to a certain extent. The Wretched and Undone is a sweeping saga set in the heart of the Texas Hill Country and inspired by real people and actual events. So if that sounds interesting to you, then please do join me for that conversation with author J.E. Weiner. I'm looking forward to speaking to her and having her on the podcast. I am partway through the book and definitely don't know where we're going yet, so I'm intrigued to find out where we are headed. But please do join me for the next episode. In the meantime, as always, if you're a fan of this podcast and you have not done so already, please do like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you're either listening to or watching the episode on. It helps. Something else that helps the algorithm is to leave a positive review. Doesn't have to be anything complicated. It can just be like, cool, this is great, thumbs up. But no, positive reviews really do help. They help not only this podcast, but your favorite authors. The algorithms are everywhere and they need to be fed, I guess. So leave reviews for your favorite books, and please for this podcast if you are of a mind to. If you're on social media, you could follow the podcast on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. Love hearing from you. If you have a suggestion for what I should call everyone, oh, hello puppy, then I would love to hear it. Come find me and the podcast on social media. And in the meantime, I hope you're having a wonderful week. I hope your November is off to a great start. But as always, my hope for you is that you have plenty of time to get yourself lost in a good book. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you next time.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to